I'm Tony Keat, the Christmas Light Guy. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to get 5 or even 8 LED outputs on a DIG quad. This is part 1 of a 2-part series. In this series, I'll show you the setup and configuration of WLED firmware on a DIG quad with 5 or 8 LED outputs and how to set up and control in xLights. In part 2 of this series, I'll show you the exact same setup using Pixel Stick firmware. I'm sure you're wondering, how is this possible? The DIG quad only has 4 outputs. Is it magic? No, it's not. Video editing effects? No, it's not. Shh. It's the secret 5th channel, and it actually works. All DIG quads can drive 5 LED outputs. Did I say 5 LED outputs? How do you get the 5th secret LED output channel? The green terminal marked Q1R/relay can be configured as the 5th LED output. The DIG quad will drive 5 LED outputs with the standard QuinLED ESP32 module. In this demo, I'm running the DIG quad with a QuinLED ESP32AE Plus, which provides 3 additional outputs. I'll show the setup with 5 LED outputs and with 8 LED outputs. Let's see what it takes to make this happen. First, my DIG quad is running the latest released WLED firmware, which is release 0.13.3. I just flashed the firmware and I have it configured for my wireless network, and I'm able to access the WLED UI. Let's start from there. I've opened up a browser and typed in the DNS address for my DIG quad, which is http://wleddigquad.local to bring up the WLED user interface. You can also use the IP address of the DIG quad. In my case, it's 192.168.100.250. I just wanted to show you both ways are possible. I'll go ahead and close the tab with the IP address and use the tab with the DNS name. Now I can configure and test WLED firmware on the DIG quad to make sure it's working. First, I'll make sure the power is turned off, and it is. Then I'll go to the config menu. As I said earlier, I've already configured the Wi-Fi settings. Next, I will go to the LED preferences to configure the LED outputs to match the pixels that are connected. In order to save time, I've already configured the LED outputs, but I'll walk you through the steps. First, I turned off the automatic brightness limiter. I know I have enough power from my power supply, so I'll disable this feature. For this demo, my DIG quad is connected to 8 strands of 12-volt WS2811s with 100 pixels each for a total of 800 pixels. So I'll set output 1 to WS281X as the type, RGB is the color order, the length is 100, the GPIO is 16. Now if you want to add more LED outputs, you need to scroll down to this plus symbol and press it. If you're using the standard module, the QuinLED ESP32, you would add 4 more LED outputs for a total of 5 outputs. Since my DIG quad has the QuinLED ESP32AE Plus installed, I've added 7 more LED outputs for a total of 8 LED outputs. I'll scroll back up to the second channel, and it's very similar. All the same settings for channels 2 through 8, which is RGB 100, except for GPIO. The GPIO for channel output 2 is 3, for output 3 is 1, for output 4 is 4, and for output 5, use GPIO 15. Okay, you would stop here if you're using the standard module, the QuinLED ESP32. However, I'm using the AE Plus, so I'll go ahead and show you the configurations for 6. So GPIO is 21. For output 7, it's number 17. And for output 8, it's 22. All the other settings are fine, so I'll go down and hit the Save button. Okay, go back to the main interface. Okay, now I will enable my video. Okay, my video is enabled. I'll turn on the power and let's see what happens. Enable the power, and we have red. Let's try blue, green, white. See if the brightness control is working. Yes, brightness control is working. Let me verify an effect is working. Let's go to like meter. Okay, let's go back to solid. Okay, now I have verified everything is working. Let's see what the setup looks like in xLights. I've opened up xLights and I'm on the Controllers tab. I've manually set up the DIG Quad controller using the Add Ethernet button. I've named the controller WLED-DIG-Quad. I've set the description to the same. For vendor, I selected WLED, and for the model, I selected QuinLED-DIG-Quad. For the variant, use ESP32 if you have the standard QuinLED ESP32, or ESP32 AE Plus if you have the QuinLED ESP32 AE Plus. I will set it to the AE Plus since that's the variant that's running on my DIG Quad. I've also enabled the auto layout models, auto size. I set the IP address to the appropriate address, and I set the protocol to DDP. Now moving over to the Layout tab, for this demo, I've modeled 8 strands of 100 pixels using the single line model and named them single line 1 through 8. Moving back over to the Controllers tab, I'll use the Visualize button so that you can see that the 100 pixel strands are assigned to each of the 8 outputs. I'll close this. Now going over to the Sequencer tab, I've already created a 30-second sequence with some simple effects, each effect being 5 seconds long. Nothing fancy here. I just want to demo that xLights has full control over the DIG Quad and all 8 outputs. Let me start my video recording again. Okay, video recording has started. First, I need to enable the output. Then I will start the sequence. The first I call Chase, which is a single strand effect, multiple colors on each strand. Next is a marquee, where it's green and white on the strands. Next is a curtain, each of them slowly closing. Next is a bars effect, where it's going from magenta to white. Then bars 2, and that's just different colors switching on each of the channels. And then a curtain where the red is going across the entire 8 outputs. I've done a few tutorials in the past using the DIG Quad with the QuinLED ESP32 AE Plus module, but I really didn't know how to set up and configure the 5th channel, or how to get all 8 channels to work until I did this tutorial. The WLED firmware setup and configuration was straightforward, and I also had no problems with the setup and config using xLights to drive the DIG Quad. As I've demonstrated in this tutorial, the DIG Quad is able to drive up to 5 LED outputs using the standard QuinLED ESP32 or 8 LED outputs using the QuinLED ESP32 AE module. This was a fun and interesting tutorial to make, and I learned a couple things that I would like to share with you as tips. Here are a couple tips that are especially useful when running all 8 outputs. First, make sure you strip the wires back on your pigtails at least 5 or 6 inches. This will give you enough free wire to connect the plus, the negative, and data wires to the DIG Quad. If you're running all 8 outputs, there are a lot of wires to connect to a relatively small DIG quad board. Second, depending on the number of pixels you are running and the brightness level, you may be able to drive 2 LED outputs off of a single 5 amp fuse. For this demo, I actually doubled up on several of the fuses. This is done by inserting 2 pigtail output wires into a single red terminal. One of the features I like about the DIG quad is that it does have 7 terminals and 5 fuses. Fuse 1 and 2 already have 2 terminals per fuse, and fuses 3, 4, and 5 have a single terminal per fuse. This allows you to protect your LED outputs, and you may have a spare left over for power injection. However, when I build a real enclosure for my DIG quad and it's running all 8 outputs, I will install a separate power distro board and possibly 2 power supplies. This way, I'll have enough protected power terminals for all 8 LED outputs and some available for power injection. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and learned something new from it. If you did and would like to see more tutorials like this, please like this video and subscribe to my channel, The Christmas Light Guy. Remember, it doesn't cost anything to subscribe. All you have to do is press the subscribe button below.